Welcome to Owl About Games, a podcast where we talk about all different aspects of board games, from design to mechanics to board game news, including updates and information for games from Open Owl Studios. I'm your host, Natalie, and I'm joined by Brendan. So sit back, relax, and let's talk Owl About Games.
Hello, everybody. We are back, and it's apparently been 1 year since we started this podcast.
1 year.
Which is wild to think about. I really didn't see it coming, but we're here. And first, obviously, Brendan's here. So
Hello.
So today we're gonna go through our regular spiel of things with a lot of great news coming out from the studio for our 4 games that have already gone through crowdfunding. So where would you like to start today?
Yeah,
Brendan?
gosh, right? It's like I feel like the news is
there's a
fast.
lot.
The news is fast and furious. Well, okay, let's start with let's go Mythwind. So Mythwind has it's kind of entering into its fulfillment centers all across the world. It's been in the US for a little bit, and it has started shipping. So I actually think Steve from Co-op Guild, who just commented saying he can't believe it's been a year, I think he got his shipping notification this morning for Friends and Family expansion. So really excited for that to kind of start getting into people's hands. It's cool how that it feels like it just snuck up on us.
Yeah, it gets when it gets to this point, like I forgot how it feels like when you start to hear people saying, I've got my little shipping label notice in my email coming and they're asking for my address. Yay.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's like, yep, you've got that spot. We've still got to ship it out. But it's like last legs of getting those games to you.
And it's it's been interesting because we've been in a it's been a few months since we've delivered a game, and so I guess I'm trying to think, maybe a year since the last Mythwind campaign was delivered.
Oh yeah,
and now we're kind of delivering this one, which is really exciting. So happy to kind of get it out. Well, when do we? I'm just going to do a little quick search because I forget when we crowdfunded. Crowdfunding period for Mythwind. Wow, guys, this is incredible, actually. So crowdfunding period was March 26th to April 19th, 1 year ago. That means that we have fulfilled in less than a year for the Mythwind reprint and new content. That's great.
Wild.
That's fantastic news. Good job, us.
Not as you guys, but
it makes up for the game that has been delayed that we'll talk about in a moment here. No more delays, but it has been delayed multiple times up until now. So it's great to see kind of our processes getting tightened up and being able to kind of crowdfund and deliver in under a year. So good.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
should we move on from Mythwind then? Yeah, let's go Stars. Yeah. So Stars is getting it was just a little bit behind Mythwind as far as the containers and stuff. Again, big games, lots of containers everywhere, and so it's going out to a bunch of places. One note on Stars, and we're gonna mention this in the update next week, but I might as well do it now. Is we found after the game had been made and everything, and it was actually in containers, we found a weird error that was introduced into the scenario book that wasn't there in the first version, but showed up in the second while we were editing. And basically, for those of you who know Stars, there's a bunch of different types of ships, and in the second act there's these ships called the Tekochka Rollers and the Tekochka Assault. We have 4 Tekochka Assaults in the game and 2 Rollers. It's kind of like the small enemies and then the medium enemies. For some reason, in the images of 7 scenarios in Act 2, the rollers and the assault switched places, which results in these incorrect scenario setups. Really stupid mistake, and we as soon as we found out about it, we kind of went into problem solving mode. And so what we're doing, and we it sucks that we have to do this to begin with, but what we're doing is right now we're printing up a sheet of stickers for players to amend those 7 scenarios, and so these are going to be included. It's like a fast print. I think they said like 10 days, and then it's going to be shipped to fulfillment centers. So it's going to be included in the boxes when we ship it out to everyone, and then they can just kind of adjust the scenarios. It's we'll also provide the digital version, and ideally something like this wouldn't have happened, but we're going to try. We're going to make it right physically. We looked at the cost of printing new scenario books, but it's astronomical when you're doing 220 page books. It's the single most expensive thing in the Stars of Icarus box, which is hard to imagine, but like that book, it's the most expensive thing to produce on a per unit basis. And so we'll have a full update next week about it. But unfortunate mistake. Found a problem, found a fix, and we're going to provide the fix. Obviously, everything. This is obviously free of charge. It's our mistake, so we're gonna make sure to get those stickers so that people can kind of just amend it. It's a really simple setup. But yeah, so that's Stars, but it'll be shipping in a couple weeks here. Fulfilling. In a couple weeks. Really excited for people to get it. The thing I'm really excited about is to start to see all the pictures of the terrain of Icarios. Now, have you seen the terrain pieces? You probably have. They're huge.
Like, I think in the pictures and stuff that and I'm like, it looks good. The added new stuff from Stars of Icarios, I'm curious about too. So like the battle book, so that there's single scenarios too.
Yeah,
like that's an interesting addition that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun because like the chord combat loop in Stars is really snappy and fast paced. So it'll be fun to kind of see how people enjoy that. Okay, so that's Mythwind, Stars, Stone Saga. Is that where we're at now?
Yep.
Let's go Stone Saga. Okay, Stone Saga, massive milestone. Files have been delivered to the printer, and then the files are going to be delivered to the localization partners today. We've done. I'm staring at a mess of boxes of like multiple white samples. So we've done a lot of work on Stone Saga, getting white samples made to hopefully when we get this digital sample, we'll be ready to print quickly. And we're aiming for kind of late summer, early fall fulfillment for Stone Saga. It's an incredible game. We're so excited for it to get in people's hands. It's going to be one of those really cool experiences for our backers. Stone Saga, yeah.
And I mean, we were able to show off a bit of the rule book too for the latest update for Stone Saga for that one. So I mean, it is massive, but like I said, it is a massive game. But it's only the first few pages that you need in order to kind of get into the game, right?
Yeah, I think that was someone's comment, right? It's like they look, it's like a 90-page, 100-page document, the rule book. Couple things. There's a crazy amount of pictures and illustrations. It's not walls of text. The rule book's really legible. And then a lot of the
appreciate.
A lot of the rules are like kind of more advanced rules that you kind of discover along the way. And so after the setup, I think there's only like 12 pages of actual rules that you need to read and ingest before you can start playing the game. And again, those are generous illustrations, lots of examples. And so I actually think the onboarding is a lot easier than maybe it looks at the start. Plus, what we've done with the box is, we have a nice little setup sheet that is on top. And so it tells people how to kind of organize their things. We have these really cool organization things like we always do. This is our first game that has card boxes in it, which is kind of fun because we had so many cards. We have card boxes with like little dividers. I really like that. So,
Yeah, that'll be, to be honest, I think at we were both at Gamma last week for different
Yep,
things, but I will say other than our announcements, Stone Saga was the other thing that I think people were most curious about and excited for. So when that fulfills
it's
later
great.
this year, it'll be exciting.
It's like so many games are being fulfilled this year, right? We got Mythwind, Reprint,
Yep.
Stars 1.5, Stone Saga, and then Storyfold. Um,
Yep.
so great segue. Great
Great
segue to
segue.
Storyfold. Storyfold's pretty quick. That is happening. Uh, that's happening. Oh, sorry. Files are basically done.
Yep.
We had a convergence of the Stone Saga files being finished and the Storyfold files being finished. And so right now, our graphic design team is switching to Storyfold, and it's going to wrap it up. I think we're planning on having it out to printers next week. So it's going to follow the Stone Saga timeline, and it might end up delivering quicker than Stone Saga just based off of the size of game.
Yeah.
I envision that there will be fewer complications in the back and forth with the factory of Storyfold, just it's really just a component thing, right? The number of files that we have with Stone Saga is just it's like
They
an
are a
order,
little different.
order of magnitude larger than what we have with Storyfold. So yeah, we're planning again. The timeline for that right now is late summer, early fall for Storyfold fulfillment.
Yeah. Man, it's wild every time we keep talking about the games we've already crowdfunded and now where they are, where we're all talking about like they're all fulfilling this year now.
This is the year. This is Open Owl's year. It's four games being fulfilled. People aren't going to be able to escape us. That and then our campaigns, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So it's good. Speaking of our campaigns, can I segue into Sprites and Sprouts?
Yeah.
Love it.
Brendan's got it on lock today. Just
It's just
segues into everything.
everything's just rolling. So Sprites and Sprouts, our game, designed by Manny Vega, a Flamecraft designer, and we have a couple of great artists who've done some wonderful art and cute art for it. I want to, we've been pitching it, and you may or may not have seen the ads for it. But the pitch, it's there's a bunch of different things. It's obviously it's a strategic farming game. It's it's played in under 90 minutes. It's not a game that lasts forever like Mythwind, but it is set in the Mythwind universe.
Yeah.
You get to play as your sprites, which is really fun. For those of you out there who purchased the magical miniatures from Mythwind, hey there, you might be able to get to use them in Sprites and Sprouts. A nice little wraparound. But I've been thinking about like there's a mechanical hook where it's like it's like a strategic farming game with a roulette twist. Yeah, I don't know. There's something like that. There's a really fun roulette mechanic in this game. And so I think there's a way to kind of phrase it, because I was talking to someone at Gamma who was like, hey, so like what's different about Sprites and Sprouts, like mechanically? And I'm like, oh yeah, besides like being awesome, artwork and design. Like, oh, yeah, there's a fun, like, I don't know. Have you seen anything like that in a board game, Natalie? The roulette mechanic?
To be like not in this way, I think, that at least that I've had. Like there's like deduction kind of
Sure.
like it's roulette deduction type of thing. But yeah, it was an interesting thing that I did not think was going to be part of this game, and I think it makes it a lot even like brings it up a step from just like a farming game, right? So
Yeah, it's a fun thing, where at the end of every day, just to recap everyone, at the end of every day, which is a round in Mythwind, in Sprites and Sprouts, the farmer comes out and does a harvest, and so they'll pick one of the 16 crop locations, and it's a 4x4 grid, and if you successfully chose that crop location, you get a bunch of bonus points. But you can also choose columns. Columns and rows,
Yep.
so that you can also get points that way. It's a really fun way to end a round, I think, because it's like,
Yeah.
you can kind of see where it's coming. The closer to the end of the round, you're like, okay, I think it's going to be one of these spots, and then the farmer comes out and it's a big kind of burst of points, which I think
Yeah.
it's quite fun.
Yeah, like it's almost like an extra little mini game within the game that you're playing that you get to do at the end of every round, instead of how most games are like, okay, well now you just clean up
Yeah.
and go to the next round, right? So it
Mhm.
makes it a little bit more fun to go through the end of every day for that.
Yes, so
Yeah,
that's
really
good.
excited for that one.
Yeah, so we're doing a bunch of testing for that. We got a couple testing groups next week lined up. Actually, right after this meeting, Natalie and I, and some other internal people are going to be doing a round as well. So we're really like the direction that it's taking. Artwork's looking good, graphic design's looking good. So that's Sprites and Sprouts.
Yep. Yeah, excited for that. Um And then, I mean, well, we have our other announcement games, but we can get to those at
Yeah, the new Michelin characters, Threshold, big game. You can go find it on GameFound, and then those are kind of the other ones that we announced. So again, it's gonna be a
yeah,
great year for us.
yeah. And then speaking of years, since this is our 1 year, there's just looking over what we've done over the past year and then thinking of what we've had even on this show. So a lot of the shows we've had a few different guests. I think Nathan was our first guest on the show for Mythwind, because Nathan and Brendan designed Mythwind one, I don't know, the core, the first first edition of Mythwind um together, and going through that. And I think we were just starting our Mythwind campaign for that, and our community was voting on which of the villagers
Yep.
on BGG we were doing, and then just talking about our friends and family expansion, which you will all soon, or well, our backers will soon be able to experience for themselves, for the interaction that you've got between characters and the interaction that you've got with the socialization board and the different villagers. Um, and then we had the Stone Saga guys on our show. So we had Max and Luke. And then Brendan last year had actually the Tempest Workshop on our show to have some of our previews. So we've had a lot of our designers and a lot of our people on the show, and I'm sure more to come. We also started going to Gen Con, which we may be at Gen Con this year again, but the Gen Con party that we threw last year was really fun, and that's when we announced our Storyfold game, our first solo game. And I think, was that our first like external designer that we had for one of our games?
Well, it was the first game that we someone had a design already and then came to us.
Yeah.
We've worked with other designers, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's the first time. Like usually we have an idea internally, and then we find a designer to kind of come and help fulfill the idea. This time, the idea came to us. Yeah.
Yep. And then yeah, so we had our first solo game, our first Storyfold
Mhm.
campaign came out, and then we had our staff retreat, which actually over the past year, Open Owl has doubled
Yeah, it's crazy
in
to think about.
staff. Like just to think of what a year does for a publishing studio like Open Owl Studios, where it's like we had you guys, I think had maybe 5 or 6 people, and then we doubled that.
Mhm.
And then to have 4 games, that now with all the staff power we have, it's 4 games pumping out, 3 new games coming out. And then we also, so Brendan and another coworker from Open Owl Studios went to Gamma a week. Is it a week ago now only? It feels like it's been
Yeah,
longer.
gosh. Yeah, it's just over a week ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't already know, Gamma Expo is in Louisville, Kentucky, and it's an industry convention. So it's not necessarily open to the public, but
Yeah, so here's my thoughts on Gamma. I like the convention a lot. I did not like the food in downtown Louisville. So I don't know if you're from Louisville, I'm sure that you guys have good food, but all the places I went to did not have good food. So
oh
that's
no.
my only complaint. I like the people. I like the location. I like the city. It's just the food. It's just the food.
Yeah. I I think from being at Gen Con and going to like Gen Con in Indianapolis, where I'm like, please, I would like a lettuce leaf really bad.
Yeah.
Like just something healthy. I was like, anywhere else, I felt better. But I did find like a salad place actually in Kentucky.
Oh, nice.
But
Nice.
other than that, I
Yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Okay, wait. Here's a question. I think both of us can answer, Natalie. That's kind of interesting. What
Yep.
for you? What was your highlight over this past year? Um, or
Oh, the past year.
yeah,
Oh
highlight
man.
of any. I know there's so many. As you're thinking, because I just put you on the spot. I'll answer for me. Lots of different highlights. I'll say two. One kind of being a community thing, and another being an internal thing. I do love um, I love the fact that we have grown. There's always some growing
Hmm.
pains when you increase staff size and stuff, but it's kind of a necessary step and a good step, and we've gotten some really good people in our team, and so really excited about that and our team shape right now. I think we have a lot of high quality designers and community people and logistics people. We got the people in place. So that's one highlight. Second highlight is and this is something that's still growing, but I love the shipping membership thing that we've created.
Yes.
And I know it's like we have a couple hundred members on it, but it's something that I think is gonna really like um grow over the next couple years. For those of you who don't know, it's I think $2.50 a month. And if you have that, you have free shipping on all of our crowdfunding games, just period. It doesn't matter what pledge you get. And so basically, if you intend to back one or more games from us, it will pay for itself and then some. And I love this because for me, I think it's let's say you back Threshold or you back Stone Saga or Mythwind, these big
Hmm.
games, and instead of paying the kind of big shipping price, you get this, and then a game like Sprites and Sprouts or Storyfold comes around, and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is like, hey, maybe this is my game, maybe it's not, but it's something because instead of paying the game price and then another $20 or so of shipping, you're just like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna buy the $40 game. So I think there's something like this is really, I think, potentially going to be like beneficial to a lot of our community, and to save people on shipping, and especially as we grow and are releasing more games, right? If someone wants some expansion material for Mythwind and they're on the shipping, then it's like they don't even have to think about it. It's like, oh yeah, great, we'll pick that up. We don't have to worry about it. So it's guaranteeing that that the consumers get the best price for our products across the
Yeah.
board. So really like it, and I think it's a good benefit already, and it's just going to grow in value over this year.
Yeah, because like when I think of it, at least from a backer's perspective, and sometimes it's like, oh, you look at the price of your pledge first, and then the second thing everyone looks for is the shipping, right? So it
Yeah.
almost just gives an alternative to people going through crowdfunding, since that is typically how you get our games, is it the shipping program. It's like as long as you have like 1.5 games coming, you're getting that covered. And especially because of how everything's been
Well,
going.
it depends on your pledge. If you get an all-in
Yeah.
or even a gameplay pledge, it's the shipping membership is cheaper than the shipping itself. Like just
Yeah.
on a single game. Yeah. Yeah. But totally.
Yeah. So yeah, it's wild, especially with the amount of content we're having come out like it as we're moving forward into the
Yeah.
future, that it's it's a lot. But yeah,
It's
so
gonna be
for
one of those things that I think just keeps on growing. But okay,
yeah.
Natalie, let's hear your highlight.
Yeah, so uh, well, I think just for personally just being part of the team and having the staff retreat and having everyone hang out for a little bit and like get to know each other, and just like, since not all of us live in the same area, so a lot of us work remotely, just so that people
All of
know.
us work. All of us work remotely,
Yeah.
and only three of us live in Kelowna. So it's we're all
Yeah.
spread out.
So getting to see everyone and then just regularly hang out. We played a few of our game, like I think we played the gang a lot. We played a lot of party games, and then also having our first Gen Con. I think that was actually the first time that I met you in person
Yes.
too, Brendan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to do that and go for the first year for Open Owl, um, it was a great experience, but also it also gave me learning for into the future, and how to go about our presence in different convention and event spaces. I'd say all like everything was great. So trying to pick one highlight is very difficult. But for now, I'll just say the in-person stuff when we've been able to see each other and interact with not just our own staff, but with other community members like at Gen Con.
Hmm.
But yeah, those I think were my favorite. I don't I
Great.
yeah. I keep trying to think of a game that we all played that we liked. Oh, I liked the escape room that we all did. We did an
Oh,
internal escape room.
that Mark led for us. Yeah, that was a blast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Love it.
And then yeah, I guess we have one question here. If anyone has any other questions that they'd like to ask us, feel free to ask now. This one came from Instagram from Board and Shield, and they'd say, would love to hear about the thematic inspiration on y'all's games.
Yeah, I think it just depends. Like a lot of them have just uh been games that like I wanted to play, but there's no games out there
Yeah.
that have it. And so and some of that kind of ties for me. For me, mechanics and theme are kind of the same thing. I tend to think about ideas in game design as what experience do we want to capture for our players, and then what experience we want to invite players into, and both of those things kind of go together. Because like imagine if Mythwind was like the world of Root, right? And all these like warring animal factions, right? It just wouldn't work because Mythwind's vibe is cozy and supposed to be like non-stressful and relaxing. So
Yeah.
like that, that wouldn't make sense. And so we there's obviously some iteration and some ideas, and Nathan kind of had this idea of like, okay, hey, 18th, 19th century kind of vibes for Mythland, and then in a fantasy world, so we can get some magical elements out of it. Other games, Stone Saga was Stone Saga. I was the idea was prehistoric
Yeah.
survival crafting, and so like I don't know, for me, it was like, hey, there isn't really any good like survival crafting games out there, big experiences. I think the prehistoric time period kind of lends itself perfectly to that, because you have kind of discovering of technologies as you're kind of growing your tribe and your people. I'm trying to think other stuff. What other stuff do we got?
Like it, yeah, I remember Max and Luke when they were talking about Stone Saga and saying that you came to them talking about, wouldn't it be cool if you had like a cave painting
Oh
and you
yes.
like drew on it? Yeah. And it's, for me, just watching like now being with other board game designers here and there, it's so wild and so crazy seeing how different ideas just randomly formulate over nothing. It's like someone will have like a pizza box and it'll open a certain way, and someone's like, what if it opened this way? And
Sure.
somehow that like goes into a whole other direction of making a game.
Hmm.
It's like very little things and like a mechanic or one item, and then people sit down and go through a whole whirlwind of ideas, and somehow a little board game baby gets made.
Or a big board game baby in our world
Yeah.
often. Yeah, yeah, no, it's good. I think Steve has an interesting question
Yeah,
on that.
here we go. So, what is a game mechanic you enjoy that is not found in your product line yet that you would like to include at some point in the future? That's a good one. Hmm.
I don't. I guess yeah. For me, I don't typically. And
Do
maybe
we have
I'm trying to think.
multi-use cards
Yeah.
in anything?
Well, wait. What do you mean by that?
Like they have more than, well, no, I guess our for Storyfold, like our action cards can be multi-use. Like they have two different actions or something, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
thinking
And
like they can be money, they can be an action, they
okay.
can be a
Yeah.
set collection thing, like different
And
things, right?
yeah. And Threshold is a card driven game, and the cards are the resource. Like you spend cards to play cards, and so the cards are your resource and cards are the actions.
Yeah.
And Threshold, I think for me that the mechanics, it's always more abstract. Like I don't know, like I think
Yeah.
some other designers internally would probably answer this differently, but it's always like the experience and then what mechanics will serve the experience well. I think there's um some room for, and this, we're exploring this with Threshold, and we haven't quite landed on what we want to do exactly, but I think there's a room for more social elements in games. And by social elements, I mean more than just like around your table. Like, how can you feel like you're playing in a world that is affected and impacted by people across the world? And I know that sounds super big and abstract and vague and whatever, but for me, that idea of a shared world is interesting, and I don't know if you would call that a quote unquote mechanic, but it's something that is an experience, and it's like, okay, hey, then we have to kind of find some mechanics that will serve that, or invent mechanics. And in that case, we're probably inventing some systems and procedures. But yeah,
It'll
I don't know. I very rarely am I like, do I sit down and play Ark Nova? I'm like, whoa, we need a river card system, and maybe Short was
Yeah.
no, obviously Short was inspired by Ark Nova's river card system, and then put a twist on it. But yeah, that's not how I operate. Other designers internally might operate that way, but yeah,
Yeah, like it kind of all gels together sometimes. Where like sometimes it's just you think of a theme and then a mechanic that can match and like they pair up together to
yes,
kind of do it that abstractly where it's like this is a mechanic I would like to um take on. It happens and I see designers going from that aspect. But well, I'm not a designer, so it's hard for me. It's hard for me to even think about. I just talk with them.
no, honestly,
Um,
I think a lot of designers start mechanic first and then theme second. But for me, I can
yeah.
always you can always tell those games because you're like, oh, you could put any theme on top of this and it would be fine.
Yeah.
Um, right. As opposed to theme first, mechanic in service of the theme. And actually, we might as well speak about Root again. I think Root is really interesting because Root had a thematic idea initially, and I haven't talked to the guys, so I don't know what came first, but I know that they wanted to design kind of like one of those old school kind of not old school, but like those those GMT coin based war games, and then kind of make it a different type of experience. And so the theme is very like important, and then kind of the mechanics are in service to like, hey, what experience do we want to capture in that like kind of rogue warfare with the vibes and stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah, it was an interesting question though, for sure. I think other than that, we're pretty much wrapped for today. Unless, did you play any games? Oh no,
Sorry, I was playing with a coin and
it didn't break, right? Okay.
No, it's good. My
As
bad.
long as it.
Edit that out. Edit that
out. But did you play any games over the last month that were into Brendan?
We have Betrayal of the Second Era, the new chip theory game set up on our board game table. It's been good. We haven't played it since before Gamma. We got busy. But yep, it's been good.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people playing that. I think my biggest one was playing Darwin's Journey at Gamma. I know it's not one of the newest games, but since Kevin brought his copy of Darwin's Journey and getting to sneak away and play that, so it was a crunchy game when there's no time for crunchy games at conventions.
Love it.
Oh, thank you. 1 year. Is this? They did our app for one of our games.
Yeah, Jow. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, that I think is a wrap for this episode of Owl About Games. It was lovely to be here today and for a full year. Ridiculous to think we've been doing this every month for a full year. But yeah, we have a whole bunch more of ideas and things. Obviously, getting more excited about Open Owl Studios, things that are coming up. By the next time, we might have more to say on our lineup and what's coming up in the next year. So anything else you'd like to say, Brendan?
No, that's good. Thanks everyone for a fantastic year. Excited for 2025 here.
Yep. Okay. So we'll see you guys all next month on the first Friday of April.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Owl About Games, a board game podcast brought to you by Open Owl Studios. You can catch us on the first Friday of every month. I've been your host, Natalie, and I'm co-hosted by Brendan, and that's a wrap on this episode. See you next month. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Owl About Games, a board game podcast brought to you by Open Owl Studios. You can catch us on the first Friday of every month. I've been your host, Natalie, and I'm co-hosted by Brendan, and that's a wrap on this episode. See you next month.